Except for a Pakistani national who was convicted of raping his niece, who came into Canada while being on the UK sex.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, there's no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that.
It's too bad that minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears all of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Canada know that this government has their back. It will continue. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest and telling Canadians.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
was convicted of raping his niece, who came into Canada while being on the UK sex offender list. Mr. Speaker, non-citizen Abraham Daniel Abraham was convicted for criminally
These liberals continue to inflict their out-of-control spending on consultants. Last year alone, over $20 billion on well-connected liberal insiders getting contracts. And this year, I think the number said that it's going to go as high as $25 billion. Why won't they put Canadians first? Instead of asking young people to make sacrifices, why won't they cut out their well-connected friends, put Canadians first, and deliver a budget that Canadians can actually afford?
Madam Speaker, it's impressive the Liberals are actually recognizing Christmas. Canadians are being asked to pull the wagon through the mud while Liberal cronies ride comfortably on top. The government isn't worried about families lining up at food banks. They're too busy lining the pockets of insiders. They're not bothered with cutting home prices. They're too focused on cutting checks to bumbling bureaucrats. They don't care about rising debt and inflationary deficits so long as the money keeps flowing to the Liberal elites. When will this Prime Minister stop using tax dollars?
The House, the answer is clear, Mr. Speaker. We will take no lessons from the Conservative.
This is how we build the strongest economy in the G7. Tomorrow's budget will empower Canadians because this is your country and we decide what comes next.
Minister talks like the government's money belongs to him, and they call these taxes imaginary. They aren't imaginary when you're staring at your own credit card bill.
Test. Okay. Bit of a fuckaroo. Sorry about that, folks. Welcome to the nap, the no answer period, where apparently my mic wasn't working. Always something with these software issues. It's just working before the show, and boom, like that, it comes off. So anyways, no answer period, where we cover the question period, prefaced by a review of the far-left evil that has beset our land and the events that surround it. The nap precedes the question period by 45 minutes, and apparently now we're just already 20 minutes into it. So we also keep score, and how we keep score is described in the description down below, which is basically they're going to ask questions, which is the opposition. They're going to ask free questions, which is the government asking questions. So they're always going to get an answer for that. We also track the lies, 3 lies per answer. After that, well, that's about your max. It can't be marking down all the lies you say. And what are lies? Well, lies basically are not answering the question, which we also track, and not being specific, or just answering something completely different, or obfuscating, or stating something in the answer that is an actual lie because you're saying something but you're not telling the whole truth. There's a lot of that in Parliament. Just watching some of it beforehand, because they're debating the budget. Before a question period, they'll be debating it afterwards, and then they'll be voting on it tonight. So will we be having a nap tomorrow before the question period? Because will there be a question period tomorrow? We don't know. It all depends on how the vote goes tonight. We are streaming on 3 platforms, Rumble, X, and CommuTube, if there's anybody watching. Oh, maybe we should bring up our YouTube studio and see how that's... Rumble studio, there we go. Well, I have somebody watching. Who knows? I wouldn't be watching either if I was stuck with somebody talking and no microphone sound. I'd like to thank my followers and subscribers for doing so. And if you're new, please give us a like, thumbs up, share, subscribe, follow, all that stuff. The chat is up. Please feel free to ask anything, and keep it clean, or don't be abusive. And if you are, I don't really care. Also, put some comments in. Drives the algorithm when I'm not driving it down with my forbidden words, or just driving it down by not having the mic on, which is a real pain with the software. Anyway, with the budget being voted on today, the entire thinking has been that whoever loses the election is going to lose the election. Now, we know just by looking at some of the polls, and not ECOS, mind you, because ECOS is like completely funded by the Liberals. They just got over $1 million again. Last couple of months, you can't trust anything that they put out, especially given their sample base, like 1,000 or so across Canada, and then they come out and say, hey, Canadians are all about this. It's such a small sample, it's BS. But if you go by the polls, it'd be pretty well true that there's still a lot of people out there who still support the Liberals, even after all the evil and the deaths that they have caused, and the misery that they continue to cause, and all the people at the food banks, and the depreciation of our value, of our money, and everything. Yeah, there's still people out there. They haven't suffered enough yet. So the thinking is, let the budget pass, and let them continue to be as incompetent as they are, which is accelerating, right? We're getting to peak incompetence now. We have $1 trillion black hole in a deficit with nothing to show for it. And of course, that's, 91% of our GDP is debt. And by the end of this year, with the borrowing that they want to do, that'll bring it up to about 96, 97%. And by the end of the following year, by the end of 2027, we will be probably 99%. 99% of borrowing based on what our GDP is. And of course, the more we accelerate with these policies, the more we drive business away, because we are becoming financially unstable in Canada. And we have a lot of legislation that the Liberals have put in over the past 10 years that also drives away industry, because for them, they look at everything as something they can tax and make revenue from, or put their friends in so that it can give them some money off the taxpayers' back. That's all they've been doing for the past 10 years. And of course, that's what Carney's been doing with his legislation. Every single little bit of it. Now, of course, there's a lot of things that happened over the past week with the MPs gone to their ridings to get some feedback. And before we get to that one little piece, one of the big things that did come up last week, let's get into our, here we go. one of the things that did come in last week. Oh, sorry, just before I get to that, just want to bring this to this attention here. There's always meetings scheduled every day when Parliament is sitting, committee meetings. One of the committee meetings that were supposed to be had was on the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights. And as soon as I logged in this morning, it was suspended. It was suspended. What is this meeting about specifically? Well, it's about Bill C9, Combating Hate Act. And this is one of the many bills that the Liberals have brought in to obtain complete totalitarian authoritarian control on Canadians. Right? So, of course, there was a warning put out by John Carpe about this, telling everybody, call your MP. And so I put aside putting together my Friday video last week and put together a little John Carpe because I had also put a video together about this in the past, warning about all the different bills. And let's see if I can bring this up here. Right there. So, we're not kidding when we say prison for life. So, they have these other acts here, right? Bill C9, warrantless arrest, no right to know your accuser, and after a series of, they can put you to jail for like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years for life. Just for upsetting somebody's feelings. Yeah. Isn't that pretty? So it's interesting that with his call out that he did, and I was watching how many people he was getting viewing his video on YouTube and on Rumble. And of course, I don't get much views at all, so I didn't really make much of an impact, I'm pretty sure. But how many other people carried the message to call their MPs? Now, of course, when I tried to call, the line was busy, no surprise. But I'm wondering, did they suspend a meeting because their MPs have been getting a lot of calls regarding Bill C9 and how they don't like being a character in Animal Farm. The big thing that happened this past week, was this person here, the Honorable Ariel Cayabaga. And we say the Honorable because she was made a member of the Privy Council for a short period when she racked up a bunch of money. And as a reason for this, she will be known as the Honorable Ariel Cayabaga and also have the initials PC after her name. Now, why is she in the news? Well, it's not because she's a member of the Board of Internal Economy. It's because she has her own concept of what an internal economy is. When she spent 173K over, what was it, a period of 10 days? 10 days or something like that, when she was temporarily House Leader for a little bit. And she had an account, and she went bananas. Yeah. Isn't that telling, eh? They have no respect at all. No respect for Canadians' money. No respect for answering any questions that we want. No respect for giving us accountability for anything. You know, when we talk about the $12 glass of orange juice that took down a government, and then we look at the $1 trillion debt haul that these Liberals have caused Canada over the past 10 years, and they just spend with abandon, and absolutely no accountability whatsoever. Let's hear what Mario has to say about this.
I want you all to meet the Liberal Member of Parliament, Ariel Cayabaga. She represents London West in Ontario. You see, Ariel made a big mistake. She spent nearly $175,000 in 9 days, and she wouldn't explain why. And these were personnel expenses during her very, very brief period as government House Leader. In fact, it began in March 14th and ended in March 23rd. And during this short stint, she remained in her riding and performed no duties that required her presence in Ottawa. Where was the money spent? And as an elected official, we are allowed to ask where that money was spent. So feel free to contact Ariel, email her, or you can call her and ask her how did she spend nearly $20,000 per day over a span of 9 days. Some clarity and receipts for where you spent our money would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Ariel.
They don't care. They have no accountability. They don't need to answer us. They've proven this over and over and over again. And you ask yourself, how do they get away with this? Well, they don't have much of a fine. I bet you if she was found to be guilty of spending this money without accountability, fine would probably only be $500. I don't know. I haven't looked at it, but if you look inside the Green Book and you do a search on ethics, well, there's one thing for sure when it comes to ethics in the Green Bush. Um, Ethics can mean anything in Parliament. Ethics will depend on the government of the day, and they will decide what ethics are and how they're to be applied. And yeah, morals and ethics are just a sounding board to accommodate or to change to accommodate you, whatever policy you put forward, or whenever you don't need to have any accountability whatsoever. And you think about all that money that was spent. And meanwhile, we have 74,000 Canadians that have died on a healthcare waiting list since 2018 through uncontrolled mass immigration. And, we could have been building extra hospitals, but not that we have any medical staff because we drove most of them out of Canada. It's just, but of course, I have this other story here. Do I have it? About the doctor in Texas? Or is it later on? How life is just impossible in Canada for a lot of people that are in the medical system. And there's a story of this doctor. He moves down to Texas and discovers that, oh my God, why would I want to stay in Canada? I'm completely being abused. Half my money's taken away in taxes. And then they have all these oppressive rules coming down from their medical boards. And of course, we have a healthcare system that is just horrible. I mean, when you develop a socialized healthcare system that is as inefficient as this with no accountability, people just work when they want. We've seen this. This is exactly what happens in a communist system. If there's no pressure to perform whatsoever, people will be like, yeah, I'll get to that patient when I get to it. And it's not their fault. I mean, you become desensitized in the environment that you work in. It's like working on a flight line for me for so many years, I get desensitized to planes. And a lot of other people are like, oh, look at that plane, look at this, because they don't see them often. But if you're in an area, you get desensitized to it a lot. That's why people go into healthcare. They look like they care, but really, you're like the 10th person they have to pretend to care about because in the end, if they cared about everybody, it would destroy them. And that's just something horrible that our healthcare is forcing upon people in this socialized system. Why? Because liberal, I do believe, are a death cult. They just don't care about life, and they have proven it for the past 10 years in their policies, proven it over and over again. Speaking of a death cult, we would do a catch up on what happened with the ostriches. So anybody who's followed the story knows that last Friday, the last day they were recovering it, the cull was it was imminent, and of course it happened. Right? It was it looks like a marksman had a firefight all on their own with 3 hours of firing in the dark. Just 500 rounds fired off. Just the for people who are not used to that kind of thing, it horrified and scarred the people that were there camping around, and of course the owners, the farmers that were there. The CFIA, they completely ignored all their responsibilities when it came to husbandry. I mean, even talking to a veterinarian that tried to talk to the CFIA guys, and he's like, I don't think these guys know anything about farming. And it was obvious that they didn't. It was obvious that they did not, because if you're going to put some animals down, have a little common sense. Don't be shooting at them in the dark. I know the air was surrounded by hay bales, but that's a lot of rounds flying around. And then, of course, once the sun rose, they had to go out and finish them off, which meant that they abused those animals for hours on end while they suffered with gunshot wounds. That's the CFIA for you. And it doesn't end there. No. They had created this huge pen enclosure using bales of hay. And in that enclosure, they they had to get rid of all the birds. However, and of course that's a whole story in itself, right? Because apparently they can't go in an landfill, right? Because they're contaminated. And then they had hay that apparently was contaminated with all this contaminated blood, right? And had to get rid of the hay. So they they used their RCMP as laborers to shuttle hay in the back of trucks to remove and scatter around the field. And of course, people were filming this going, hey, why aren't you guys wearing hazmat suits? If this is so dangerous, why aren't you guys doing the same hazmat kabuki theater that the CFIA is doing out there? Because the CFIA was like full hazmat suit and goggles and gloves. And, oh, these are dangerous birds. Yeah. Yeah, they're so dangerous that they just let the cops grab the hay with their hands and move it around. No cops didn't seem to care. In fact, it was so deadly, so contaminated deadly their blood was, that what do? They just pushed the hay bales over on the property. That's not good for one thing, because that hay is just not gonna rot and vanish. You're creating an issue here. So if the land is really contaminated, you just left the land behind all contaminated like that? Now, of course, it was raining. Now there's runoff from that field going into the local ponds and watering areas nearby. And of course, there's footage now of all kinds of wild birds going by and helping themselves to that water and apparently the contaminated water table. It's all a farce. It was just a big old kabuki theater. Now, of course, David here can keep you up on the story. He's got all the stories. And we'll play you a few clips of some stuff. This was, of course,
Day brought war to an innocent family in the middle of nowhere. How about in the middle of nowhere?
What did we fight for with this government? What did we fight for Canada for you guys to do this to a family, right? Well done before Remembrance Day, to show that the sacrifices of the 158 that died in Afghanistan was for nothing, because you fucks are taking over the farm, you're harassing the family, you're suppressing the people, you're no good, right? Just leave. Right?
What was worse is that even after this call had been done, RCMP is still hanging around, harassing, intimidating just by being there. And the entire exercise was an exercise to teach people a lesson. Do not go against the government, or else we will kill all your animals and we will make it as miserable for you as possible. All that gunfire, that shooting happening the night before. And what he said there, man, just a little tick there, because I attended a couple of ramp ceremonies when I was in Afghanistan. And yeah, what the hell was it for? I mean, it's bad enough that they made me a second-class citizen for refusing their fraudulent, dangerous, and deadly COVID-19 injection. Fired a bunch of us. 4,000, 6,000, thereabouts. They won't say. They keep hiding the figures. What the hell did we fight for? If this is the kind of insanity, it doesn't end there. It never ends there, right? Now, here's some of the stuff I was telling you about. The complete disrespect for the entire scam, right? If you're going to play a scam by saying the birds are dangerous and they have to be destroyed and they're a biohazard, that means you have to follow through on the rest of the game, right? You have to play the rest of the game. You have to play the rest of the theater. Because if you're not doing it, we know it's a bullshit story, which of course it is.
We are looking at the aftermath at Universal Ostrich Farms in Edgewood, British Columbia. This hay here, filling torn up ruts, was taken from the kill field, the killing pens that are about to come into view. Mass slaughter took place here. Over 300 ostriches shot using up to 1,000 rounds. These bales have all been knocked over and left in the rain for days. the hay from these bales has been strewn about the entire property. Quite the biohazard. Nobody can enter this area either to document it or collect evidence because of the biohazard risk. Meanwhile, you pan over here and there's a bunch of birds, numerous birds. Look at these ones walking in the water, the runoff from the rain that's been coming through the blood-soaked hay and killing pen. And all these what appear to be ducks. There's also been turkeys and some migratory birds, probably. These...
The entire thing was a scam. Because if they were really that concerned, they wouldn't have left a contaminated site like that. But you know, something just came across my mind while I was just getting ready for the show. And I wouldn't be surprised if the CFIA sends the farm a bill for their stupidity. Because it was costing them about $100,000 a day. And that's probably not including all the rental of the equipment and purchasing these bales of hay. Now, of course, the bodies. What is happening to the bodies? Right? If they're not going to be able to put them in a landfill because, you know, they're contaminated, well, then one thing that David was looking into is that they could do burial at sea. They could just dump them out at sea. That's permissible if they get the permit. The government can sign off on it. And we know that a lot of the bodies are being stored in containers that they've tracked down to Food Safe, Safeway, Safe Foods. No, Way Safe. I forget what the name of the company is, but they were the ones that were able to, because everyone else backed out on the rentals once people started calling them. No, but these guys stayed onto it. So now, of course, they've got these dead birds packed into these blue bins that are sitting in their storage area, and of course now the dead roadkill smell is starting to waft out from their storage area, right? So I don't know, it's it's just one bad story after another with the Liberals. Right now, I was talking about, oh, we care so much about Canadians. We want to make sure they're taken care of. Yeah, taken care of. We want to take care of our wallets while they take care of everything else. Here's more from Viva Frey. He was like, I'm calling it out now. If any whistleblowers want to come forward anonymously, please reach out. My theory, this will be revealed to have been a big pharma financed heist of the highest order, which explains why Pierre Poilievre was so silent. So if a lot of people don't know that they had actually got an injunction to not kill their birds back in the beginning of the year. And then next thing you know, 9 days later, Canada decided to buy a bunch of H1N1 vaccines, whatever, like 2 million doses, 2 billion, who knows how many doses, but they bought a bunch of doses. And then the very next day, boom, CFIA comes back and says, yeah, we're going to cancel the injunction. We got to kill early birds. We're like, oh, really? Now, of course, the whole thing is that these birds recovered because, like we were taught in biology when I went through school, that people achieve natural immunity by fighting off a disease and getting up antibodies, which is what happened with these birds, right? They've got antibodies in them. So they went in and confiscated the eggs. Yeah. CFIA acting at the behest of Big Pharma to acquire whatever antibodies these birds had and to monopolize that science, ensure it does not become public domain. That's right. And that was one of the arguments. They're saying, hey, let's look at the antibodies that these birds had. And, you know, the states, they wanted the birds, but no. Have to destroy them all. Destroy them all. And, of course, it doesn't end there. Here's Dan Dix, independent reporter. It's already happening. The CFIA is now going after a BC animal sanctuary. An animal sanctuary in BC's interior says it's facing a heartbreaking experience after discovering a positive case of H5N1, also known as avian flu. Gatorade, based in Summerland, BC, says that its team and volunteers are devastated by the discovery because the animals are at the center of everything and the emotional weight of this moment is immense. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has already taken control. In his video, Dandix Press for Truth uncovers the newest case just days after the ostrich cull, while also exposing this for what it is, another step towards total control over our food and our lives. Because it won't stop there. They'll be coming after your pets next. Anything that they say is safety related, they will come in and destroy. Oh yeah. Oh, hey, you know what? You're growing a garden in your backyard? Oh, we heard of this new plant fungus out there that could destroy crops. We have to come in and destroy your garden. I'm telling you, this is where these communists are going. Oh, you don't believe me? CFIA going after another animal farm sanctuary. This time it's peacocks. At Decrederaid, BC. Oh, well, that's the one we were just talking about. But yeah, peacocks. They're not. They're not food, and you can't control it in the wild. The wild is going to get this H1N1 anyway. So let your critters, especially these ones here, get their natural immunity, just like the ostriches had. But no, 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 no. No, we need to destroy everything because the Liberal Party in control of this government only has one thing is its end goal, and that is to control every single thing in Canada and use Canadians as nothing but trolls to give them funds, some labor. Here's Donna Blatcher. Nothing has made me feel more vulnerable as a small farmstead than the CFIA ostrich cull in BC. I have sheep, goats, chickens, guardian dogs, and a pony. My animals live outside most of the year, near ponds with visiting ducks. My main income is from pasture-raised market land. Yep, can't have that. You can't be doing a business on your own. No, the government needs to control that. I vaccinate annually for clostridial disease to prevent enterotoxemia and tetanus. Now, CFIA has put petting zoos, rescues, and non-commercial flocks under disease control measures. But they only have one playbook. Test the dead, count the living, kill them all. Test the dead, count the living, kill them all. Test the dead, count the living, kill them all. That's the CFIA's playbook. They are the death machine. The death machines of the culture of death that is the Liberal Party. Now, CFIA. Few farmers ever speak out. Doing so would only make things worse. We all need to stay on the good side of CFIA. Right now, as I type this tweet, somewhere farmers watching in horror as CFIA contractors seal up a barn to gas or foam thousands of seemingly healthy birds just because they came into contact with a bird that died. Would they have all died regardless? He'll never know. The CFIA desperately needs a new policy. Avian flu is endemic in our migratory bird population. That's right. We cannot stop it. It's natural. We can't just keep killing animals forever. Well, yes, they can. They will continue to kill them forever until they destroy everything and everybody in Canada and continue to make food more inaccessible and starve people to death in Canada. We already have 2.2 million people at food banks while food is getting more expensive, and we're making it more expensive by killing birds in our food stocks just because a couple of dead bodies might have tested using this PCR test. This polychain reaction test that's been proven to be fraudulently used and applied during the COVID-19 vaccine mandates to force people to take it. Yeah. Same ploys, same bad science, same fake science, same death cult. Now it's a quarter after. And I'm looking down here, and I don't know if the question period has started. Well, it's still statement by members. Go on to the next part. Say it's time to test quarantine and start learning whether animals can build resistance or even immunity to these evolving strains, of course. And that's the way it used to be. You used to isolate on your farm animals that were sick not to infect the rest of the herd until they got better. Same thing with humans. Imagine that. You know, we finally learned about a couple of decades ago. It goes, oh, geez, maybe we shouldn't have Bob come in to work because he's got the flu. And we don't want the rest of everybody to get the flu. He says, hey, Bob, stay home. Get better. Come back in a couple of days when you're not infectious anymore. We're like, okay, no problem. And then Bob gets better. How did Bob get better without a vaccine? How the fuck did that happen? Oh my goodness. Oh, that can't be. I think we need to kill Bob so that we make sure that disease never happens again in Bob because Bob refused the vaccine. It's this crazy BS that these people are into. What, you think this is crazy? I mean, look how people went crazy during the COVID stupidity. Where they were like, adamantly, like, oh, let's deny them health care if they refuse the vaccine. That's right. They deserve to be second-class citizens. It's the same mentality. Same stupidity being applied here bureaucratically to killing all your animals in Canada. All your domestic animals. They're all at risk right now because of these fascists. And we are still statements. Oh, God. Why are you wearing a green jersey? Sorry, I was just looking at a video from one of the members standing up to do a statement from Moose Jaw. Oh, of course. It's all about the Grey Cup. Well, while we're waiting for the statements to be done, let's have a quick look at 3i Atlas. Some latest pictures here.
Hey guys, Dapu7. We've got a new image here of this 3i Atlas. This is from the Starfront Observation, Chuck's Astrophotography. This looks like a giant sword. And it looks like the handle part on the left here, that's the part that is facing toward the sun. And then you've got this massive jet kicking off out.
Well, yes, I know. Is this Mavi007? He's always seen a lot of things in this. We did look at this image, some images from 3i Atlas about 2 weeks ago when we were looking at something different. Well, what's happening here is you've got 3 jets this way that are away from the sun, and you have 1 jet towards the sun. That doesn't make any sense. And now apparently this thing is starting to rotate, and apparently it's gone off just a few degrees, and apparently some of the off-gassing and stuff that's been happening doesn't make any sense at all. It's looking more and more like this is an artificial structure that is going through our solar system. I guess it's inevitable. I mean, when you do the math and you look at the possibility of other life forms coming into being over their own generations on other planets, it could happen. Of course, another theory is, what if this was made locally? And is this coming back and visiting now? After all, planet Earth has been here for billions of years. Plenty of time for many civilizations to start and fall, reach levels of technology, and perhaps even leaving the solar system, and now coming back. Well, who knows? It's all speculation. And the house is now looks like they are recognizing somebody up in the balcony. And I think they're about ready to start. And of course, this one's hanging up. Yes, it is starting. And go. Oh.
Will grow to make sacrifice a $16 billion budget office.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Canadians deserve an affordable life with an affordable budget. However, this Prime Minister is using his deficit budget as a credit card with no limits. And there are therefore surges in housing, groceries, and taxes. The Parliamentary Budget Officer stated that the Prime Minister has doubled Justin Trudeau deficits that were already record deficits. A $16 billion deficit higher than what he promised. Why is the Prime Minister using his budget as a limitless credit card by forcing Canadians to make sacrifices? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the 2025 budget is an investment budget, a generational investment budget. It will grow our economy. According to the PBO, this policy is sustainable in the long term.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It's multi-generational debt, Mr. Speaker. Canadians deserve affordable groceries. The Prime Minister promised that he would be judged by the cost of groceries. Today, Statistics Canada published its data showing that food inflation is almost double that of the Bank of Canada's targets. It is increasing 40% more quickly than in the States because of liberal taxes. This is a limitless credit card. Does he expect Canadians to pay their groceries with the same magical card? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I have great news. We're creating jobs and inflation is going down. Inflation has slowed down, and for almost 2 years in a row, inflation is within the Bank of Canada's estimates. We will be reducing inflation we will grow the economy and we will build the future of Canada.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister's costly deficit gambles our future on the national credit card. And it drives up food, housing, and tax bills. In fact, the Parliamentary Budget Officer has revealed in his recent report the Prime Minister has doubled Justin Trudeau's deficit. He's brought in the biggest deficit in Canadian history outside of the pandemic, $16 billion bigger than he promised only 7 months ago. Why is it the Prime Minister breaking his word and forcing Canadians to pay higher inflation today and higher taxes tomorrow for his costly credit card budget?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, today is a good day. Inflation is down 2.2%. It's for almost 2 years it's running within the Bank of Canada's target. Mr. Speaker, today this is a good month. Unemployment is down again. Jobs are up again. Mr. Speaker, today is a historic day. The Leader of the Opposition and his colleagues have an opportunity to vote for generational investment to build this economy.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Maybe it's a good day for him and his Brookfield buddies who are dodging their tax bills, but it's a terrible day for the Canadian people stuck paying record-high grocery bills. In fact, the Prime Minister said he'd be judged by prices at the grocery store. Today, Statistics Canada revealed that grocery price inflation is almost double the Bank of Canada's target, rising 40% faster in Canada than in the United States of America. The direct result of the Liberal industrial carbon tax on farmers, the food packaging tax, the fuel standard tax. The Prime Minister puts his budget on the national credit card. Does he expect Canadians to pay their groceries the same way?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the rate of inflation is down. Mr. Speaker, job creation is up. Mr. Speaker, ambition and confidence in this country is sky high. We believe in Canada. We are investing in Canada. Today is the opportunity for every member of this House to join us.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He's not investing in Canada. He's dodging his taxes by putting his money outside of Canada, while the Canadian people cannot afford to eat, heat, or house themselves. Inflation is now nearly twice the target when it comes to the measurement of food, rising 40% faster in this country than south of the border. We have 100% more people lined up at food banks than in 2019 as the Prime Minister continues to raise taxes on farmers and on food packaging. So once again, the Prime Minister thinks he can put his budget on a limitless credit card. Does he really expect Canadians are going to buy groceries the same way?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again this month, just as it was last month, just as it has been every month when I've been Prime Minister, Canadian wages have grown faster than the rate of inflation. Canadians are getting ahead. We are creating jobs despite the attack on this economy by the Americans, despite by the obstruction of the opposition. This is an opportunity to build our country. The vote is today. Stand up and be counted.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister was right by Surrey the other day handing out tax dollars and donuts in a photo op, but refused to take questions on the 330% increase in extortion that Liberals caused with soft-on-crime laws and open border policies. They've allowed extortionists out of prison by eliminating mandatory prison sentences, and they've allowed foreign gangsters to have visitor visas to kill our people in the streets. Why is it that he had time when he was near Surrey to hand out donuts, but not to stand up and protect Canadians against extortion?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there's an opportunity to stand up and protect Canadians against extortion, against home invasion, against gun crime, against mandatory, against online harm to children. We are putting these legislations in front of this House. The opposition has a chance to support it. We will protect Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Bailleau-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister seems to be in a bit of a precarious spot. Perhaps it's time for him to do some introspection. He claimed that he would quickly eliminate tariffs that have been imposed on Quebec and Canadian products, but they have increased, and even new ones have been added. Will the Prime Minister admit that his strategy has failed? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canada has the best agreement with the United States of America. More than 85 of Quebec goods and services, Canadian goods and services that now have zero tariffs. The Honourable Member for Bailleau-Chambly. No one believes that. Absolutely no one believes it. I'm sure the Prime Minister doesn't believe it. After his election, he was also meant to re-establish the principle of free trade. Had he done so, he would not even have to claim that we have the best agreement with the States. Does he agree that his trade agreement strategy with the States has failed? The US President isn't even accepting his phone calls anymore. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the President of the US has been calling me back because I have his phone number, unlike others in this place. First of all, second of all, today there's the opportunity to invest in Quebec for the projects in Saguenay, in the Matawini mine, with Hydro-Quebec. It's time to invest in the future of Quebec and Canada. Join us. The Honourable Member for Bailleau-Chambly. The Prime Minister seems transfixed on cell phones. In any case, we made 6 requests to the government. Is the government ready to commit to eliminate discrimination against seniors 65 to 75 years of age? Do they commit to increase healthcares to 6% a year? Will they grant credits to young families when they purchase a first house? And maybe if they do that, we might vote for them. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, in the budget, we will protect, and the members of this House could protect, transfers for seniors that amount to $80 billion total. Huge investments in Quebec, the biggest investments in culture, and massive transfers for seniors. That is the choice we have to make today with this budget.
For Thornhill.
Spiraling out of control, and they'll do anything to keep Canadians from noticing. Parliament's budget watchdog has found that the Prime Minister is using fiscal tricks just to hide how much money is being wasted here in Ottawa. He says there's a less than 10% chance that the Liberals will meet their own spending targets, the same targets they've blown through again and again. The warnings keep piling up. The waste keeps growing, and the government's commitment to responsibility keeps shrinking. So the real question is, what are the odds that the watchdog gets fired next, just for telling Canadians the truth?
Yeah!
L'honorable ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, it's only Monday and we already have good news, Mr. Speaker. Inflation is down. Employment is up, Mr. Speaker. And we presented to Canadians a generational investment budget, Mr. Speaker. We're going to invest to build this country. We're going to invest to protect our sovereignty. We're going to empower Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we're going to grow this economy the second fastest rate in the G7, Mr. Speaker, because we believe in Canada, and Canadians are going to see whether the Conservative believe in Canada, because today we'll have a vote, and let's hope that we're going to walk together. Mr. Speaker, Canada needs to grow.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Can't afford groceries, they can't afford rent, they can't afford their mortgages, and they want us to support the reason why. I think most Canadians would say no thanks. But back to the parliamentary budget officer. Remember, this is the same watchdog who called Liberal spending stupefying, shocking, and unsustainable. Now he says the government has abandoned any restraint at all. So no wonder the Prime Minister wants him gone. How many more watchdogs, how many more damning reports will it take for this government to stop maxing out the credit card with their reckless spending?
L'honorable ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, I know it's a big budget. I'm afraid they may have missed a chapter, Mr. Speaker. Let me help them. Someone called Kevin Page, Mr. Speaker, we serve our nation, and I quote, "We need to focus on economic growth. We need capital investment to boost innovation, improve our infrastructure, and diversify our trade. We live in dangerous times, and we must meet our NATO spending target. I believe Parliament should approve the budget plan, Mr. Speaker." That's the word of a former parliamentary budget officer, Mr. Speaker. We believe in Canada, and let's hope and let's see if the Conservative will support Canadians.
The honourable member for Newmarket Aurora.
The parliamentary budget officer rang the alarm on Friday. He tells Canadians there's just a 7.5% chance that this Prime Minister meets his own fiscal promise. The Liberals have twisted definitions so badly, he now recommends an independent expert body to police the numbers, as he uncovered a $94 billion reallocation in the budget. And what is the Liberals' response? Not a correction, but an effort to silence the watchdog. Replace the referee rather than play by the rules. Will the Prime Minister tell Canadians why anyone should trust his fiscal rules when he has no intention of keeping them?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, I'm a member of Parliament for a region that has many small communities. And I can tell you those small communities all across Northern Ontario are looking forward to the investments this budget makes in small and rural community infrastructure, in projects like the Crawford Mine just outside of Timmins that's going to create thousands of jobs, Mr. Speaker. These Canadians, these Northern Ontario Canadians know they have so much to offer, and they are imploring members opposite to vote for them in this evening.
Member for Newmarket Aurora.
Of course, the Liberal government shrugs off their own experts when truth is not convenient to them. One day after the budget dropped, Fitch credit ratings rang another alarm, warning that the Liberals' reckless spending is eroding Canada's finances and putting pressure on our credit rating. Budget 2025 blows the deficit up to $80 billion and pushes our general deficit far above the AA credit rating median. They also remind us that the Liberals have a strong track record of breaking every fiscal anchor that they set. How many more fiscal watchdogs need to blow the whistle before this Prime Minister reins in his reckless spending?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Historically, this budget aims to invest not only in infrastructure that typically is covered solely by provinces, but also in health infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, in small communities like Kenora, Mr. Speaker, where communities are waiting for those investments so that they can too have the kind of promise that Canadians in larger municipalities have, Mr. Speaker. And so let me just be clear. In Nipigon, Ontario, Mr. Speaker, where I visited a school food program, we are so excited that program will become permanent. On this side, we know that children need food to thrive. We hope they don't vote against hungry kids.
L'honorable député de Richmond-Athabasca.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What is the Parliamentary Budget Officer's role? He has a clear role in the federal government's transparency. He provides to MPs an independent analysis that is non-partisan on the state of public finances. What does he have to say about the Liberal budget? Investment being misinterpreted? The government will not be able to respect its fiscal targets to reduce the debt to GDP ratio. Are they going to agree with this conclusion, or are they looking to fire the minister, the PBO?
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have an ambitious alternative, and that's Budget 2025 with the best fiscal situation in the G7, the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7 countries. We'll also invest in infrastructure to modernize our infrastructures here in Canada, projects to build our country, with various major projects, including Davis in Quebec, with the broadening of the Saguenay shipyard. That is Budget 2025 to build Quebec and Canada's economies. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are always quick to quote experts, but only when it suits them. But here we have the Fitch rating agency, which gives the government its credit scores. It says that the federal finance is a real disaster, but the Liberals have turned a deaf ear. Even the Parliamentary Budget Officer last week sounded the alarm, saying that government spending is unsustainable and shocking. How many more reports from our experts are needed for the Prime Minister to realise that he needs to end his irresponsible spending? The Honourable Minister. Let us be clear. Canada's fiscal situation is enviable. AAA rating, lowest G7 debt to GDP ratio, and they're getting ready to vote against. They are voting against a 20% increase in salary for Valcartier troops. They're going to vote against our troops and the armed forces. How can they vote against this? The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, we'll always agree with what works. What doesn't work is this government, and it's been dysfunctional for the last 10 years. The Parliamentary Budget Officer did a transparent analysis and said that there is less than a 10% chance that the government will remain within its deficit targets. So we know it won't work, Mr. Speaker. And on top of this, the government just posted a job advertisement for the position of PBO. Why? Is it because the current one isn't going in their direction? The Honourable Minister for National Defence. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2025 has generational investments that seek to rebuild, rearm and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces. There was a historic $2 billion envelope for salaries, which will help over 90,000 members of the Armed Forces and their family. Of all branches, there have been salary increases costed at 20% last year. I call upon everyone to support our forces for a strong Canada. The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, it's been confirmed by the Parliamentary Budget Officer. Liberal deficits announced in this budget are twice as large as announced because the government is disguising expenditures as investments. I quote the Director, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, the government definition of capital investments is too broad. He even suggests that the subjective definition should be reviewed by independent experts. If Justin Trudeau had used this method, he would have achieved budget balance every other year, and we would have accused him of austerity. In short, it's a sham. Why are the Liberals hiding the real figures from Quebecers? The Honourable Minister for Finance. I'm happy to see that there is smiling among the Bloc MPs. Why? Because there's so much great news for them in the budget. Bloc MPs can go to the Ile de la Madeleine to announce an airport. If they can be there, I'm sure they'll be here for the vote, because I know the people from the Ile de la Madeleine. They watch TV and they will watch the vote this evening. Mr. Speaker, there's even more good news. The port of Saguenay, the Contrecoeur project, many projects that will strengthen Quebec and will invest in healthcare infrastructure. This is a budget that meets Quebecers' expectations. Will the Bloc be for or against? The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer hasn't had a drink of the Liberal budget Kool-Aid. That's normal because it's his mandate to provide non-partisan analysis, and that's precisely why the Liberals want to replace him. They've issued a call for applications to find a permanent replacement who demonstrates, and I quote, tact and discretion. tact and discretion, Mr. Speaker. They want a discreet PBO, Mr. Speaker, who will apologise for his words before speaking. They might as well ask him to join the Liberal Party. Are they going to do what they did with judges and recruit the next PBO from the Liberal Party? The Honourable Minister for Industry. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that we're not stopping there. So I'm going to add to what my colleague said. My colleague across the way comes from Mirabel. He knows that aerospace is important, so I'm sure that he will defend it with the same fire that he has shown today. He will defend our investments in aerospace, because if he votes against the budget, he votes against the people of Mirabel who are working in aerospace. He'll also vote against infrastructure and health that are so important for Quebecers.
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is claiming his massive new deficit spending is an investment in the economy, but Canadians have heard this promise before. In fact, for 10 years under Justin Trudeau, who doubled the national debt, and the results were productivity flatlined, investment collapsed, and business competitiveness fell behind the U.S., which means lower wages and less opportunities for our workers. And now Canadians are hearing that same failed promise from this Prime Minister, who will add $300 billion of new debt over the next 2 years, Mr. Speaker. So why is the Prime Minister repeating a decade of failed Liberal spending promises? What are workers going to get out of it, Mr. Speaker? What is he promising them?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, what we're promising is the largest infrastructure investment in Canadian history. This will create thousands of good jobs in the skilled trades, Mr. Speaker. But don't take my word for it. Iron Workers of Canada said, when Canada builds, Canadians work. Leuna, Western Canada said this budget will create thousands of great-paying union jobs in Western Canada. The Union of Operating Engineers said this budget's a nation-building project represented an important opportunity for workers across Canada. And the Carpenters Regional Council said billions in infrastructure and housing investments have the potential to create tens of thousands of good-paying jobs. Mr. Speaker, why would the Conservatives vote against it?
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals keep insisting that more deficit spending will strengthen our economy, but the data says quite the opposite. Despite doubling the national debt and promising Canadians it was an investment, after 10 years, Canada ranks well below the average in the world's advanced economies in productivity and business research and development investment, which again means lower wages for our workers. And now the budget watchdog is warning that the budget abandons the fiscal anchors that we need to protect our long-term sustainability. So why are the Liberals weakening our fiscal anchors when a decade of their reckless spending failed to deliver any results for our Canadian workers?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
They say they are fighting for youth, but they plan to vote against a national school food program. They say they are fighting for families, but they plan to vote against a middle income tax cut. They say they're fighting for workers, but they plan to vote against $75 million in apprenticeship funding. And they say they are fighting for our borders, but they plan to vote against a much-needed pay raise for our service members in our armed forces, including in my riding of Esquimalt at CFB Esquimalt. Canadians want to know who they are fighting for, because it certainly isn't them.
The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, imagine all the things you could buy if you were given a credit card with no limit, and you'd never have to pay off the balance at the end of the month. You could just pass the bill on to your children and your children's children, and that's exactly what this Liberal Prime Minister is doing. A budget in the red that will put generations of Canadians in the red. And there's no such thing as such a credit card like this, except for the Liberals. Will the Liberals heed the warnings of the Fitch rating agency, which says that the federal finances are at a high risk of further deterioration with this unaffordable budget? It'll increase the cost of living for everyone. The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In the budget, I'd like to correct things. There's a tax cut of $800 per family for an average Canadian, and it's a pay increase, unprecedented one, for the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces, and they received their raise on Friday. It's investment to modernize our infrastructure across the country, increase our productivity, and grow Canada and Quebec's economy. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable-Lotbinière. This budget is an unprecedented deficit. Fitch is not the only one concerned about Canada's public finances. It's the PBO, who has raised several concerns about the Liberals' broken promises. There are no longer any limits on Liberal spending. The PM has abandoned all of his fiscal anchors, and suddenly in the budget, this anchor that we've had for 30 years has disappeared without any discussion. No surprise, the Prime Minister wants to fire the PBO. He hates being told the truth. And how many more warnings will it take for this Liberal government to put an end to its irresponsible spending? The Honourable Minister. Clearly, if we don't invest, we need to stimulate our economy, increase our sovereignty and the resilience of our Canadian economy. That's what responsibility is, and I would ask my colleague to support this 2025 budget. Thank you.
Member for Flamborough, Glanbrook, Brampton North.
This Prime Minister's costly credit card budget piles today's reckless spending on tomorrow's taxpayers, and the warnings keep getting louder. Fitch, the government's own credit rater, says the Liberals routinely blow through their fiscal anchors and that federal finances run a high risk of further deterioration. And now the budget watchdog is sounding the alarm, noting the government has abandoned its debt-to-GDP anchor, the very metric the Liberals said was key to protecting the AAA rating. No wonder this Prime Minister wants to fire him. How many more damning watchdog reports will it take for this Prime Minister to rein in spending?
That's right. The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, on November 4th, we introduced an historic budget to build Canada into the strongest economy in the G7, to build an economy by Canadians, for Canadians, so we will never be reliant on one country again. Mr. Speaker, we are making generational investments in infrastructure, in housing, and in defense, and we will build our economy into the strongest economy in the G7. The members opposite have a decision to make. Will they stand with us and support this budget, or will they force a Christmas election? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Merci. Ma question. Thank you. My question is for the Prime Minister.
Agree that it is a deficiency in the budget that our legally binding Paris commitments are not mentioned. Can he confirm here on the floor of this House that in passing this budget, the government is committed to holding to as far below 2 degrees as possible, to funding climate adaptation, to delivering on the nature strategy, and continuing to engage in meaningful Indigenous reconciliation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the Honourable...
I'll have to ask the Prime Minister to start from the top. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for advocacy of the Youth Climate Corps, which is in this budget and which this House can vote for. Vote for the future of this country. Mr. Speaker, this budget puts us on the path for real results for climate, for nature, for reconciliation. I can confirm to this House that we will respect our Paris commitments for climate change, and we're determined to achieve them. I can confirm with this House that, consistent with our Kunming Montreal commitments, the nature strategy will be released in the coming weeks. We will build this country strong, sustainable, and pure for future generations.
The Honourable Member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
The Prime Minister said to judge him on the price at the grocery store. Well, nowhere is his failure more evident than baby formula. According to StatsCan, since 2017, baby formula has gone up by 84%. After 10 years of Liberal governments, desperate families are relying on Facebook groups and even buying opened cans of baby formula for their children. Why is the Prime Minister increasing inflationary spending and making baby formula more expensive?
The Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality, Small Business and Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, our government recognizes that in order to build a strong economy, we need to ensure that women and girls are safe and have the tools that they need to support and thrive. That's why our government is investing $660.5 million over 5 years, with $131 million ongoing. This includes stable funding to prevent gender-based violence, strengthen women's economic security, and support equality across Canada. Mr. Speaker, when the Conservatives were in power, what they did was gutted women and gender equality at 40%, which saw the closure of 12 regional offices. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we understand that when we invest in women, we are going to...
The Honourable Member for Fort McMurray Cold Lake.
Moms want to feed their own children, and they should be able to afford baby formula. Their programs were working, we wouldn't have 1 in 3 kids at food bank lines every single month. We wouldn't have 700,000 kids every single month in food bank lines. And we would not have baby formula as the #1 stolen food product in Canada. This is because of their failure. So will they end their inflationary spending so moms can afford baby formula?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've taken action to fight food insecurity. Part of the solution is working with our provinces and territorial and Indigenous partners to ensure 400,000 more children get nutritious meals at school every year. That is why this budget will make the National School Food Program permanent. In Canada, no child should wonder at school where their next meal is coming from. When members opposite talk about food insecurity, they should start by voting for the budget.
I was going to give the member a little more time, but she finished her answer, I guess. The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, while families in Kitchener are increasingly using food banks at alarming rates, this government had a chance to lower food prices by scrapping the standard fuel tax. Instead, they chose to increase it by another 17 cents. This increases things like coffee, already up 34%, and beef up 16%. Why does this Prime Minister seem so determined to drive Canadians into poverty by ignoring skyrocketing food prices while he enjoys a luxury lifestyle hidden from the consequences of his own policies?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, last week we came to an agreement with Ontario to continue our work on affordable childcare in that province and all across the country, Mr. Speaker. Families are saving money. But don't take it from me, Mr. Speaker. Listen to this parent from Andrew Fleck Children's Services. We've been able to have healthier meals at home, start saving for post-secondary education. Another parent said we were able to buy a house because of the child care fee reduction. It's made a monumental difference in our lives. Mr. Speaker, if they want to help families, why don't they vote for our budget?
The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in typical Liberal fashion, I asked a question on food and I got an answer on childcare, but I'm going to ask again. Why is the Prime Minister not only refusing to scrap the fuel standards tax that's driving up food prices, but actually increasing it? This will drive up the cost to grow the food, package the food, and deliver the food across this country. Does he want groceries to be a luxury item because luxury is the only thing that he knows, while everyday Canadians can't afford to put food on the table?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I guess she wasn't listening to this parent from Andrew Fleck Children's Services who said we've been able to have healthier meals at home and start saving for post-secondary education. But another mother, Mr. Speaker, from the same child care services said, I would have had to quit my job and become a stay-at-home mom, and we would not have been able to afford child care at previous prices. And go, oh, Mr. Speaker, yeah, I know they don't really like seeing women in the workforce, but this mom talked about
The Honourable Member for Portneuf, The Honourable.
Was the member finished? I think. No. I thought the member was finished. The member had like about 4 seconds left. I mean, if the member wants to take 4 seconds.
Council coverage that her job afforded. So not everybody has the luxury, Mr. Speaker, to stand home.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf, Jacques Cartier. Mr. Speaker, the same generosity I would like to have from you. This Liberal government is the most expensive in Canadian history. For every dollar spent by this PM, it comes directly out of Canadians' pockets, and everything costs more. Groceries, housing, heating. The famous industrial carbon tax is rising up prices for our farmers. It's the cost of food that we're putting on our table that's going up, and there's nothing in this budget to give Canadians any hope or any oxygen. Why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax, which raises the price of groceries? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I think that the Conservative member is somewhat confused, and to help him to see things clearly, all he has to do is ask his colleague sitting next to him, who is the member for the Liberal Party in Quebec, who voted for the carbon price system in Quebec. And this system is not under the federal government. All he has to do is ask his colleague, who is sitting right next to him.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Hill South.
This Liberal government is the most expensive in Canadian history. Every dollar this Prime Minister spends is driving up the cost of everything and is paid for by hard-working Canadians. According to the latest data, year-over-year, chicken is up 6%, seafood is up 8%, infant formula is up 6%, and beef is up a staggering 17%. Food prices are now rising 40% faster in Canada than in the United States. But instead of scrapping the industrial carbon tax and making life affordable, the Liberals doubled down, hiking the tax on farmers and producers, driving up the cost of farm equipment and fertilizer. When will this Liberal Prime Minister finally end his punishing industrial carbon tax so Canadians can afford to put food on the table again?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, while the opposition is busy talking down the economy, we're building it up. Maybe they're too busy to know that what went down is inflation. We're investing in builders and entrepreneurs. I was at the 111 Innovation Zone in Toronto. Young entrepreneurs were thankful that this budget will make it easier to hire Canadians and invest in Canada. Don't take my word for it. Listen to the Canadian Council of Innovators, who say our budget is listening to innovators. I hope the opposition listens as well and does what Canadians want. Build in Canada, buy in Canada, believe in Canada, support the budget.
The Honourable Member for Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is the most expensive in Canadian history. Every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians, driving up the cost of everything. Food prices have risen nearly 40% faster in Canada than in the U.S. The Liberals' answer? Increase the industrial carbon tax. The Okanagan Valley is the fruit basket of Canada, yet taxes on our farms mean the cost of fruit grown in Canada is higher than fruit from abroad. Why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians elected this new government to deliver on affordable homes and strong, connected communities. And I have good news for my colleague from BC. Budget 2025 answers the call with historic investments.
Excuse me. I'm going to ask the Minister to start again because of the noise level around me. I won't. Well, could the Minister take another shot at it, please?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good news for my colleague from BC. Budget 2025 answers the call with historic investments in affordable homes that will make a difference in people's lives and improving our roads, our transit, our public infrastructure, our community centers, hospitals and schools. And with Build Canada Homes, We are closing urgent gaps and building at a scale unprecedented that brings affordability to all Canadians. Mr. Speaker, every investment is about empowering Canadians and making a difference in their lives with affordable housing and great community infrastructure.
Excellent.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
This Liberal government's the most expensive in Canadian history, and everything that this Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of hard-working Canadians. Now let's take a look at the Liberal-appointed president of the Nuclear Safety Commission, who's racking up massive expenses for international junkets like $14,000 to Paris. Meanwhile, they're raising taxes on fuel that's going to add 17 cents a litre, and their appointees are taking limo rides. So why do Liberals get limo rides while Canadians get higher taxes from this Prime Minister and these Liberals?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, what this government is doing is helping build the best nuclear system in the world. We are building at Darlington. We just put $2 billion into building the first of a kind small modular reactors that will be exported around the world, creating Canadian jobs, Mr. Speaker. That's what we're doing.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands,
What they're
Rideau
doing
Lakes.
is making excuses for a Liberal appointee who raised his travel budget by 85%. Well, Canadians are lined up at food banks in record numbers. These Liberals have seen, under their watch, we've seen food prices rise 40% faster than in the United States. Why is it that every time that these Liberals stand up, life gets harder for Canadians? Canadians can't afford these Liberals. They can't afford that Prime Minister, and they can't afford higher taxes. Why are these Liberals doubling down on higher prices for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, what this government is doing is doubling down on jobs for Canadians. At Darlington, we're building $12 billion, $20 billion of new SMRs, creating 20,000 new jobs, good-paying jobs, blue-collar jobs all across this country. That's what we are doing.
The Honourable Member for Bay of Quinte.
Mr. Speaker, my riding of Bay of Quinte is home to several hundred Canadian Armed Forces members and their families. I know that my constituents, including our brave men and women in uniform, are watching as Canada makes new investments in our forces and work towards our NATO targets. Can the Minister of National Defence then speak to the new defence investments Canada is making in Budget 2025?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, in Budget 2025, we're investing over $81 billion to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in our Canadian Armed Forces. We're making major investments in our people with the largest salary increase, up to 20%, for CAF members in a generation this past weekend. Nearly 90,000 CAF members saw their salaries increase. This is what's in our budget: a pay raise for CAF members, support for CAF members, equipment for CAF members, respect for CAF members. Let's get behind our forces.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford South Langley.
Speaker, last week there was deep disappointment with the Prime Minister's actions in British Columbia. While he took a leisurely walk along the beach admiring the White Rock Pier, families in nearby communities were attending vigils and town halls in response to more than 100 extortion cases reported this year, terrorizing the BC Lower Mainland. These families are facing repeated shootings and intimidation, and the Prime Minister deliberately chose to ignore them. Instead of taking leisurely walks on the pier, will the Prime Minister get serious and adopt our Conservative plan to finally crack down on extortion?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has taken many steps to improve the situation of public safety in our country. Mr. Speaker, when the Conservatives vote against Budget 2025, they are voting against more RCMP officers, more CBSA officers. They're voting against a $1.7 billion investment into our RCMP, and they're voting against pay raises for RCMP cadets, Mr. Speaker. Essentially, Mr. Speaker, they're voting against public safety.
That's right. The Honourable Member for Mission, Matchtree, Abbotsford.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals can outline anything in the budget they want, but it's not addressing the problem we have with extortion, where there's been a 550% increase in British Columbia. Business owners are especially scared because they're the ones who are being targeted. The Abbotsford Police, the Surrey Police have already put forward special task force to deal with this growing problem. In the last Parliament, the Liberals had a chance to vote in favour of our Conservative plan to stop extortion, and they rejected it. So on behalf of British Columbians, when are they going to get serious and vote for our Conservative plan to reduce extortion and keep our businesses and communities safe? Hear, hear.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Good news, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives have a chance in this Parliament to vote for C2, to vote for C14, to vote for C12. Mr. Speaker, this weekend I spoke to an extortion victim. They told me that it is taking police months and months to get permission from the courts to link their phone number that they're being extorted from to an actual suspect, Mr. Speaker, but lawful access, which is in C2, would help provide the solution to this problem. When will the Conservatives get on board and vote for lawful access measures, Mr. Speaker?
The honourable member for Edmonton Gateway.
Mr. Speaker, extortion is at crisis levels in Canada, up over 550% in Surrey alone. But the Liberals have done nothing to protect Canadians. Over 6 months ago, they promised 1,000 new RCMP officers to help the situation, but none have been hired, Mr. Speaker. We brought forward legislation to crack down on extortion and keep Canadians safe. They blocked it, Mr. Speaker. When will the Liberals take extortion seriously and support our Conservative plan to keep these criminals behind bars and keep Canadians safe?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, in this country, extortion is taken very seriously. When extortion is committed, the Criminal Code of Canada has, you could serve life in prison according to the sentence in the Criminal Code of Canada, Mr. Speaker. But what's really important when it comes to extortion cases is solving the extortion before charges are laid. And Mr. Speaker, police across this country are asking for lawful access provisions so they can investigate these cases appropriately. But you know who's against it? The Conservatives, Mr. Speaker. Why won't they give law enforcement the tools that they need to crack down on extortion?
The honourable member for Brome, Missisquoi. Mr. Speaker, in my riding of Brome, Missisquoi, many members of my community work in the natural resources industry and in the manufacturing sector. They rely on strong supply chains and infrastructure to buy and sell the goods that they need to support our local economies. The Port of Saguenay is a key example of such a supply chain for Canadian industry, and it benefits all of Canada by playing an important role as a link to catalyze our economy. Can the Minister of Transportation tell us how this year's budget, through its investment of $57.6 million, intends to strengthen this crucial economic link? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank my colleague from Brome, Missisquoi. Modernizing port infrastructure is essential to stimulate regional economies and productivity and strengthen our national economy. I was happy on Monday to be at the Port of Saguenay with the prefect from Lac-Saint-Jean East and the member for Jonquière from the bloc and from Lac-Saint-Jean and my academy from Chicoutimi-Lafleur to announce a $57.6 million investment for the Saguenay Port. It's an essential project for the region and for Quebec, and I hope my colleagues will support the 2025 budget.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve straight answers about how their money is being spent. Public accounts list more than $173,000 in expenses over just 9 days by the Liberal member for London West during her brief time as a government House leader. And Parliament was not even sitting. That is $19,000 a day, even though her publicly documented activities were routine ceremonial stops or partisan events in London, not House leader work in Ottawa. So will the Liberals table a full breakdown for these charges to allow Canadians to understand how is this even possible?
Good job.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, sometimes I wonder if the Conservatives don't just sit on Twitter all day and try and figure out what they're going to say in the House of Commons. Instead of the opposite, Mr. Speaker, these are absolutely groundless. These are absolutely baseless. There are no facts involved in anything the member just said. The member for London West has always taken a prudent and responsible approach to public finances. There was nothing out of the ordinary. No new employees employees were hired, salary expenses for employees were normal, and vacation expenses for employees were reported. As is always the case, case closed, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Rosemont-le-Petit-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, people across Quebec are suffering from the housing crisis. Rents have gone up by 16% in 3 years, and homelessness is at an all-time high in our streets, and people are forced to remain in substandard housing because they can't afford to move. And yet the Liberals are prepared to plan new spending that is 6 times higher for the military than affordable housing. Are the Liberals prepared to commit to investing specific and significant amounts of money in cooperative, social, and community housing? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague. We worked in cooperation with my colleagues from the NDP, and what we obtained, obviously, is maintaining the programs that are close to Canadians' hearts. We're talking about childcare programs, nutrition programs for young people, and pharmacare. And most importantly, we're making a generational investment in affordable housing, Mr. Speaker, something that should help all Canadians, and we'll always be here to help people from the middle class. And the first thing we did was to reduce taxes, specifically to leave more money back in Canadians' pockets. Canadians know we'll always be there for them. Thank you.
That brings question period to an end for today. I'd like to inform the House that the volume of earpieces will now be reset in a few minutes.
Oh my. Well, that was quite the, as I expected, question period to be. And where were we? Ah, yes, we were dealing with the 3i Atlas. All right. We're not going to go back to 3i Atlas. I'm just putting this up. Well, there was a lot of stuff brought up during the question period. And of course, Steve McKinnon there at the very end, lying his butt off like he always does. You know, when obviously the economy's in the toilet, and he'll stand up and goes, Mr. Speaker, the economy is good. You know, just like he read off this list. So I know that they were talking, oh, it was vacation pay that she did. Oh, yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens in the next show when I do some research and see if there actually is an itemized list of expenditures, or whether this is just McKinnon, again, blowing smoke and lying in question period, because politicians are allowed to lie in question period without being called out as a liar. And they love to lie. In fact, they make lying a really good practice job. I wonder if they actually have lying coaches that go around from office to office to make sure that they're really up on their lying. Because, you know, you can't be telling the truth in question period if you're in government. You have to lie. You cannot tell the truth. You just have to lie. And if you do tell the truth, make sure you throw in a little lie there as well, so that you can never be held to account for what you have said. So on our way out, we are going to do an outro with something I've picked out. Let me see. What do I have here? Yes. Okay, let's do that. We'll finish off with the video on the budget. And if the budget passes tonight and the House is back in tomorrow, we will be right back here 45 minutes before question period with the next episode of The Nap. If they are not, we might be here anyway for something else. We'll see. Until then, we'll see you next time, and let's do the outro.
Let me tell about the S&P and Moody's ratings, which are AAA, the best in the entire world. The best in the entire world. We have the second lowest debt in the GDP, Mr. Speaker. We're doing just fine.
Speaker, ratings are always great until the day they're not.
We're doing just fine. We're doing just fine. We're doing just fine. We're doing just fine.
Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister proposed the worst budget deficit in history outside of the COVID period. Every dollar he spends costs Canadians in their taxes and through inflation. More spending by government means more sacrifices for Canadians, with more than 1 in 4 Canadians now living in financially insecure households. Will this Prime Minister at least consider reducing his deficits to levels that we saw under Justin Trudeau?
You're here.
Mr. Speaker, what's remarkable about this budget is that it builds for the future, but it helps people today. This is a budget that cuts taxes for 22 million Canadians, saving families up to $800 a year. It makes the National School Food Program permanent, helping over 500,000 kids. It delivers automatic federal tax filing for 5.5 million Canadians. It invests in housing, it invests in infrastructure, and it lowers the barriers to make the Canada Disability Benefit more accessible. If the member opposite truly cares about affordability for families in Canada, he would come on over and vote for this budget.
Mr. Speaker, I know it's difficult for some members of the Liberal caucus to understand, but parents would actually prefer to be able to afford to buy food themselves for their kids. And they used to be able to before these Liberals took office. Latest numbers today show that more than 1 in 4 people in Canada are living in a financially insecure household. More than 1 in 4. That is the legacy of this party. It wasn't this way before. It doesn't have to be that way again. When will they change course?
Mr. Speaker, these Conservatives think they know best, but they are actually ignoring the experts. They're ignoring the Coalition for Healthy School Food, who calls this budget a great step forward to support children and youth in Canada. They're ignoring the Heart and Stroke Foundation and the Breakfast Club of Canada that also applaud our commitment to making the National School Food Program permanent. The Conservative Party needs to listen to the experts, listen to Children First Canada about why this program makes a difference and why 500,000 families across the country are going to benefit from it.
Speaking of experts, according to Fitch Ratings just yesterday, quote, Canada's proposed budget announced in Parliament on November 4th underscores the erosion of the federal government's finances. Persistent fiscal expansion and a rising debt burden have weakened its credit profile and could increase rating pressure over the medium term. Mr. Speaker, this has happened before with crushing impact on Canadians. In the 90s, after similar rating pressure, the Liberal government of the day was forced to cut 32% from federal health and social transfers over just 2 years. Does anyone over there understand the gravity of this situation?
Mr. Speaker, as somebody who spent much of his life in the banking community, let me tell him about the S&P and Moody's ratings, which are AAA, the best in the entire world. The best in the entire world. We have the second lowest debt in the GDP, Mr. Speaker. We're doing just fine.
Mr. Speaker, ratings are always great until the day they're not. Here's a quick review of the early 90s from Reuters. February 1994, quote, Liberal government brings down what it considers to be a tough budget. It nonetheless has spending rising slightly, an immediate public and market reaction as it did not go nearly far enough. January 1995, quote, a biting editorial in the Wall Street Journal headline, Bankrupt Canada calls Canada an honorary member of the third world. The next month, the Liberal government was forced to make the most vicious cuts to healthcare and social programs in Canadian history. Who over there is willing to take a stand to avoid a repeat?
Mr. Speaker, Budget 2025 includes generational investments to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces, and it starts with our people. This budget includes a $2 billion historic pay and benefits package, which will impact close to 100,000 forces and their families. Untrained sailors, privates, and aviators are receiving a 20% pay raise. That's what's in our budget. That's what's at stake. All members of the House should come together to support our forces as they help build and keep Canada strong.
Mr. Speaker, while Canadians are being forced to choose between heating and eating, this government has chosen to increase our national debt by $80 billion. Can this Prime Minister explain how driving up the debt and increasing the cost of living is going to help the single mom skipping meals, the senior afraid to open their hydro bill, or the young family priced out of their new home? Or is this just continued economic theater from a government that's completely lost touch with reality?
They are fighting for youth, but they plan to vote against a national school food program. What? They say they are fighting for families, but they plan to vote against a middle income tax cut. Wow. They say they are fighting for workers, but they plan to vote against a $75 million apprenticeship training fund. They say they are fighting for our borders, but they plan to vote against a much-needed pay raise for our service members in our armed forces, including in my riding at CFB Esquimalt. Canadians want to know who these Conservatives are fighting for, because it certainly is not Canadian.
Speaker, after 10 years of Liberal inflationary deficits, working Canadians have never had it so tough. People lined up at food banks and parents putting beef back on the grocery store shelf were desperate for something in the budget to bring prices down. Did the Prime Minister scrap hidden taxes on food? No. Did he scrap the 17 cents fuel standards tax? No. The Prime Minister heard the cries of working Canadians, and what did he do? He scrapped the luxury tax on private jets and yachts.
Carney, old bean, if you want to really help lower the cost of things, how about that luxury tax on private jets and yachts? The last time I bought a Gulfstream, I had to pay millions. We were all elbows up for you, so it's time you did something for us. What's crazy about that is that when someone pitched that idea, Carney said, he's right, you know. And now it's in the budget. Not a single measure to bring down home prices, not a single measure to bring down grocery prices, not a single measure to fight inflation. Nothing to take off the taxes on grocery farming and production. Instead, a tax break on private jets and yachts.
That's right, the only measure in this budget to make things cheaper will only apply to boats and airplanes. Can the Prime Minister tell us how many Canadians lined up at food banks will benefit from the private jet tax cut?
Want is a government that will invest in their futures and invest in their possibility, and that's exactly what we've been doing, Mr. Speaker. 67,000 new jobs added this month, Mr. Speaker. 2 months in a row, we're seeing unemployment go down. And what's great about this, Mr. Speaker, is youth unemployment is going down. So the investments we're making are working. This is a budget for young people, for seniors, for families. They're going to vote against things like dental care. They're going to vote against things like child care. That's what families need, and that's exactly what this budget delivers.
If they really wanted to give workers a break, they'd scrap the industrial carbon tax that their American competitors don't have to pay. Now we all know who this budget really was for. It was a Brookfield boardroom budget. After all, the billions in extra debt means bankers and bondholders get big interest payments, and now when those board members go to luxury private jet, they get a big. A G600 is currently listed for $63 million. Can the Prime Minister tell us how much a Brookfield executive will save with the private jet tax cut, and how much more Canadians will have to pay when food prices go up?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Canadians do not live in a pretend world. They know there is no tax on food. They know which party always vote against affordability, against dental care, pharmacare, child care, basically anything with the word care in it. But most importantly, Canadians know that our government is there for them with a budget that will protect jobs in critical sectors like auto, steel, aluminum, and lumber, build affordable housing and the infrastructures our communities need all across Canada, empower, catalyze our economy. So if you're really there for Canadians, you'll vote for the budget.
Mr. Speaker, this government is the most expensive in Canada's history. Every dollar spent by PM comes directly out of Canadians' pockets. The more he's spending costs. In my riding, producers are seeing their costs skyrocket because of the industrial carbon tax. Everything is going up, machinery, transportation, and it costs more to produce, and food prices go up at the grocery stores. While this PM spends recklessly, families continue to struggle to put food on the table. Why does this government refuse to admit that its industrial carbon tax is a tax on food that we have to pay? Mr. Speaker, clearly the carbon tax on industry is important to keep so we can protect our climate. Nevertheless, the cost of living is our priority, and we are going to work on this. This is a responsible budget to do so, and when will the opposition understand that we have to keep these factors for Canadians, and they should be supporting the budget? Mr. Speaker, it's clear this minister does not understand the reality on the ground, because according to a Nanos poll, 1 in 5 Canadians have skipped paying a bill just to put food on the table. Frankly, this is unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, can this Prime Minister explain to my constituents and theirs why he's stubbornly sticking to this industrial carbon tax while families have to choose between heating their homes and filling their fridges? Not only do we know that Quebecers support this budget, we know why. Because we're going to deliver for them. Good jobs in my riding, this riding, will ensure that people who work at Alstom will have good jobs, will be able to buy groceries, and will be able to meet the needs of their families. Quebecers also want a good healthcare system. The federal government has continued to increase health, well, in past budgets they've increased health transfers, and we're keeping them the same in this one, and we're supporting the construction of hospitals. The Quebec government asked for this, and we delivered for them, and we're there for Quebec.
The Liberals promised to spend less, but have introduced the largest budget deficit in history outside of COVID. This at a time when 1 in 5 Canadians say they've skipped paying a bill to afford groceries this past year. Liberals had a chance to lower food prices. Instead, they increased the industrial carbon tax on our farms, driving up the cost of fertilizer and farm equipment. Why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive?
If that member should take next week and go and meet with her local chapters of the building trades in her riding. I encourage every member to take next week to meet with the locals to understand why they are supporting this budget. From coast to coast to coast, workers are supporting our plan. The Canadian building trades, the Alberta building trades, the IBEW, the carpenters, on and on. They are endorsing the investments made in this budget, Mr. Speaker. The SEIU said it best. Promises made, promises kept. Mr. Speaker, they're supporting the investments because we're building good jobs, good union jobs.
After 10 years of Liberal government, young Canadians are struggling. They're struggling to afford homes in one of the least affordable housing markets in the world. They're struggling to find jobs in an economy that is increasingly slowing down, and they're struggling just to afford food after some of the highest food inflation in more than 30 years. This budget was an opportunity to do right by the next generation. Instead, the Liberals announced over $300 billion in new debt that will be left to these exact same young Canadians to pay for. How is that ethical? How is that fair? How is that remotely fiscally responsible?
Mr. Speaker, one number, 67,000 jobs created. And how are we supporting them? We are supporting them by investing in their health. And through Budget 2025, we're investing $5 billion to renew hospitals and healthcare centers, $97 million to recognize skilled professionals faster, and new supports for personal support workers. And Mr. Speaker, don't just take it from me, take it from CMA. They're saying this is a right step in the right direction to support the health of our nation.
I have a simple question for the Liberal government. Over the past 10 years, they have doubled Canada's national debt. In that same time, unsurprisingly, they have also doubled the amount of taxpayers' money that they waste paying interest on that debt. In fact, today we now spend $55 billion a year just on interest payments. That's more than we collect in the GST. That's more than we spend on healthcare. Now they want to borrow another $320 billion. Does this government really think that spending $55 billion not on healthcare, not on roads, but on interest is a good use of taxpayer money, yes or no?
We are building Canada strong, and that includes the spaces and places that Canadians go to play, to practice, and to exercise, Mr. Speaker. A healthy lifestyle is preventative medicine, and we are building the facilities necessary right across this country. New rinks, new pools, new field houses, so the next generation of Canadians can have better physical literacy, a healthier lifestyle, and they can connect with their communities in those important places, Mr. Speaker. Why won't the Conservatives join us, build Canada strong, and make sure that every community has access to those facilities, that infrastructure that keeps us healthy and our communities connected?
We're doing just fine.